Good evening, everyone. My name is Amber Stiller. This is Sydney Laughlin, David Saltani, Reagan Dunn, and Katie Province.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sydney Laughlin. These are my colleagues, and we are from your local Soil and Water Conservation District. The management plan we have developed for your farm is both sustainable and profitable. We have found that your main goals with your operation are to increase your yields, improve soil health, convert woodland to cropland, utilize current agricultural technology, and diversify production. Along with these goals, we would like to keep with the idea of sustainable or better than sustainable practices. Now, according to the article, What is Sustainable Agriculture?, there are 3 parts to sustainability: the environmental, the economic, and the social. We have combined all of these ideas and have developed a comprehensive management plan that will address sustainable cropping systems, biotechnology, controlling floodwaters, forest productivity, animal introduction and agritourism, and the economic, social, and political implications of our plan. We would also like to share that if there are any words, phrases, or concepts we use in our presentation today that are unfamiliar to you, we encourage you to ask us questions during the question time, and we would be happy to elaborate. Thank you. Now please turn your attention to David.
Thank you, Sydney. One of the main goals that you had asked us to address was increasing profitability through increased yields and decreased losses by erosion. We believe that the most effective way to accomplish this goal is by shifting our focus to soil health and the benefits that come through diverse and sustainable cropping systems. That being said, we have decided to grow row crops on all fields except fields 1, 3, 9, 11, and 14. In our plan, we will grow a variety of flue-cured tobacco, sweet potatoes, soybeans, and corn, which we will incorporate in a 4-year crop rotation. Of course, seeing as the demand for tobacco has declined, we will still continue to grow it, but we will have to adjust our production accordingly. Now that you have an idea of what we plan to grow on your farm, there are several best management practices that we plan to implement to boost your productivity and yields while minimizing environmental harm. These include conservation tillage, cover crops, and finally, integrated pest management. We understand that you have been using conventional tillage all your life and that you may have some doubts in switching your tillage methods. However, as a team, we are confident that in order to build a sustainable future for your farm, we must adopt conservation practices. These practices, like no-till and reduced-till, will significantly limit soil disturbance, allowing you to rebuild soil structure, improve organic matter content, and increase infiltration and water retention. When compared with conventional tillage, conservation tillage will better improve soil health as well as your farm's productivity. Another practice we strongly recommend for your farm are cover crops. These are crops that are grown during the off-season with the intent of providing continuous soil cover, increasing organic matter, and replenishing and releasing vital plant nutrients for the following year's cash crop. Our plan will include a mix of both cool and warm season cover crops, including hairy vetch and crimson clover, which will primarily serve to fix nitrogen, as well as buckwheat and cereal rye, which are effective nutrient scavengers. According to the book, No Soil is No Life, 96.4 billion tons of soil are lost every year. With cover crops, we can ensure that your farm does not lose this highly productive topsoil to erosion, which will help you stabilize your yields and produce high-quality crops. Finally, integrated pest management is a great way to reduce your pesticide inputs while protecting your crops, pollinators, and water resources. This practice utilizes various methods to control and weaken pest populations with as little environmental harm as possible. One IPM measure that we want to implement on your farm specifically is beetle banks, which are strips of native vegetation harboring beneficial insects to control crop pests. These beetle banks, along with polycultures and our crop rotation, will provide both stability and security against crop pests, and diseases on your farm. While I have only discussed 3 best management practices, there are many more, including field borders, grassed waterways, and drip irrigation, which we would love to implement on your farm and would be happy to discuss with you later. We want you to understand that sustainability is well within your reach, and that with our plan and these practices, you will see improved soil productivity and yields, protected environmental resources, and a promising future for generations to come. Thank you, and now turn your attention back over to Sydney.
Thank you, David. Now let's discuss your next goal of incorporating biotechnology on your farm. Now, there's a common misconception going around that biotechnology is just for the large farms with huge fields growing the same crops year after year. Biotechnology is used to help small producers grow a diverse number of crops that are suited to the soil and environmental conditions around them. The main idea behind this biotechnology is precision agriculture. Precision agriculture is simply producing more with less input, ultimately increasing your profitability. There are many different technologies you could use on your farm to help accomplish this goal, but in reviewing your farm, we found that precision drones are the way to go. There's a company based in Raleigh, North Carolina called Precision Hawk that produces these easy-to-use drones. To quote Dr. Bobby Vick with Precision Hawk, these drones have the ability to analyze the yield potential of a field, map problem areas on your farm, and spot spray herbicides and pesticides only where they're needed, reducing the amount of chemical runoff into nearby waterways and deep river. Now, I know what you're thinking. These drones sound great, but aren't they going to be pretty expensive? Yes. There will be an upfront cost associated with the drones, but they will pay for themselves in a matter of years. According to the article, Tech Savvy Agriculture, precision technology has the potential to reduce herbicide use by 99%. When you consider this and the fact that you're going to be saving a lot of time because drones will be mapping your fields for you, it becomes pretty clear that this technology will be a great benefit to your farm. Now, another biotechnology we could consider implementing would be the use of poultry monitoring cameras or poultry monitoring systems. We could use these in the broiler houses that we plan to add to your farm, and Reagan will discuss more later. These systems are overhead cameras that take pictures of large groups of chickens. They can spot problems, and they alert the farmer via smartphone if any problems are found. The amazing thing about this technology is that it has the ability to detect diseases 12 days earlier than current technology can. In summary, our team believes that both the use of precision drones and poultry monitoring systems will improve your profitability, save you time, and ensure the future sustainability of your farm. Thank you. Now please turn your attention to Amber.
Thank you, Sydney. So today I'll be discussing with you best management practices to protect your crops from floods, as well as protecting your forest land and wildlife habitats. Currently, you are losing profits on fields 9A through F, 14, 13, and 15. After evaluating these fields, we determined that field 9 is actually a wetland, and that you are eligible to apply for the Wetland Restore Easement Program. This program will pay for you to convert agricultural landscapes back to natural wildlife habitats, or wetland habitats. By converting your land from a flood-prone area to a productive area in field 7 in this area, you will improve productivity and save money. Field 13 and 15 are not considered wetlands, but your crops are still prone to flooding in the wet season. We recommend that you widen the riparian area. This riparian buffer will absorb a lot of rainfall, reducing flooding, and will also filter any pollutants and pesticides before entering the stream. It's critical that we protect our water sources. Not only will your actions affect your water quality, but it will also affect the water quality of your neighbors downstream. We understand that field 14 has a great production rate, but not for agriculture, for timber production. We recommend that you convert this land to a loblolly pine forest with yellow poplars scattered throughout to act as buffers to insects and diseases. So now that I have discussed how to protect our crops from floods, now let's turn to ways to improve our forest production. I will address these ideas in 3 main steps. the improvement, protection, and enhancement of our resources. The first thing we need to do to improve our forest is to improve the health of the trees. We can do this by selectively harvesting areas that are densely vegetated or overmature and diseased. By removing these inferior trees, you'll improve health and will also open the forest floor to more regeneration. The next step to our forest plan is to protect our resources. Things we need to protect against include invasive species, pests, diseases, and even stress. You can use technology in order to accomplish this. We can use technology such as drones to detect when pests are there and the complexity of their invasion. We could even use IPM, or integrated pest management, to control those species once they're present. Furthermore, you can prune and thin the forest ecosystem to reduce stress and reduce competition. Finally, to improve your forest resources, we need to enhance production. According to an article by Allison Power, properly managing your natural ecosystems provides many ecosystem services, not only to the environment, but also to your agricultural ecosystems. One way we can do this is to improve and protect our corridors. Corridors are strips of vegetation that connects wildlife habitats. This improves the amount of beneficial wildlife species, such as raptors and wood nesting bees. We can put riparian areas in field 10 to connect these two tracts. This will reduce habitat fragmentation and increase the edge effect. Finally, ways to enhance our forest resources is to practice agroforestry. Agroforestry is the process of growing cash crops in the understory of tree species. We can do this in field 14, as I mentioned earlier, with the loblolly pines. We can grow blueberry in the understory and even use the yellow poplars to grow mushrooms. Like Henry David Thoreau said, all things are connected. By properly managing your forest ecosystem, you will have a productive, vibrant, and sustainable forest for future generations. Thank you. Now please turn your attention to Reagan.
Thank you, Amber. My colleagues have introduced ideas to diversify your crop production, but I would like to introduce the idea of animal agriculture on your farm, specifically poultry. Poultry is a booming industry in North Carolina right now, and we think it would be a wise investment for your farm to put poultry units here. Not only that, but the waste or litter we could collect from these poultry houses would act as a valuable nutrient source here on the farm. It could also help cut back on fertilizer costs, which are currently detrimental to your wallet. Now, as poultry producers, it is recommended to have a waste management plan in order to avoid any issues that could arise from improperly handling this poultry waste. Through this waste management plan, we could build things such as waste storage facilities, which will cover, seal, and consolidate the poultry litter to prevent nutrient runoff into nearby streams. Thus, your farm can have a positive impact on our local aquatic ecology. Now, secondly, with the poultry production, is using buffers around these storage facilities or around the poultry units themselves. They can help collect runoff and thus, again, bolstering the aquatic ecology of the nearby area. Now, there are cost share programs available to you if you choose to implement these best management practices. An example is the North Carolina Agriculture Cost Share Program, who will help offset the cost of implementing these best management practices, or BMP for short. Now, another way to diversify your crop system is through agrotourism. Agrotourism, simply defined, is allowing the farm or the farmer to put public property, is allowing the farm or the farmer to introduce the public to their farm willingly. Now, some examples of agrotourism would be some pick-your-own operations, corn mazes, or even pumpkin patches. Now, after evaluating your farm, we recommend putting an agrotourism pick-your-own operation on field 1, which is denoted by the star on the right side. Now, some things that we could grow here would be blueberries, blackberries, strawberries, peaches, or apples, things that are best suited to your soil, but also would sell well in your community. We also recommend putting native pollinator habitat in the fields around these agritourism operations. This would draw native bees to the area. It can help increase your yield sizes while also bolstering the native population of bees, which are currently in decline. Thus, your farm can also have a positive impact on local wildlife. You could also implement European honeybee hives, which you could collect the honey from and sell perhaps at a roadside farm stand. But what's most exciting is studies have come out showing that European honeybees and native bees working together make the most effective pollination possible. Now, this benefits you as a producer. Ultimately, my team recognizes the importance of agritourism. Mr. Steve Troxler, the North Carolina Agriculture Commissioner, said that agritourism is the bridge between urban and rural. On this farm, it will improve and protect the quality of your farm and the environment. It will enhance the community vibrancy, and it can also inspire the next generation of agriculturalists. Thank you, and now Katie will address economic, social, and political aspects of your operation.
Thank you, Reagan. So now we've talked about our plan to make your farm sustainable and productive. Now let's focus on the economic side of things. Let's start by comparing the costs and benefits of our plan. On the cost side of things, we are aware that some of the equipment we are asking you to invest in and the buildings we are asking you to construct can be costly. However, we've already discussed how these things can start to pay for themselves quickly and how we have cost share programs available to us to help offset the initial cost. Furthermore, I believe that the benefits I'm about to discuss will far outweigh these costs. Let's start out by looking at the cost of doing nothing. If no changes were to occur on your farm, the productivity would continue to decrease, the fields would continue to flood, and eventually the land would become unsuitable for agricultural production. Seeing as this is the exact opposite of your main goal, we can't and won't allow this to happen. My team has already discussed how we plan to do this. I just wanted to point it out for the fact to show that already the benefits and the goals that we are meeting far outweigh our costs. Next, we need to talk about how we plan to increase your revenue. In the world's market, the demand is always changing, and so we need to have a diverse set of products. The modifications that we've made to your operation, such as including agritourism, livestock, and a diverse set of crops, meet this well. We also have selling points such as being eco, bee, and worker friendly. This, along with the increased productivity that we've worked to develop, will give you more increased profits. Earlier, I mentioned cost share programs and how they can help to offset the initial cost, but they can also help you financially in the future. My colleagues have already mentioned some cost share programs, but I would like to further mention one more. The Agricultural Conservation Easement Program pays farmers to continue to use their agricultural land for farming for a set amount of time. This is something you were already planning on doing, so it's a great way for you to get another source of income and to ensure the future of your farm. Now I've discussed the selling points and the benefits of our plans. Now it's time to focus on the marketing strategy that we plan to utilize. First off, we plan to market locally through the agritourism and the roadside farm stand. But to do this on a larger scale, we will utilize an app called Visit NC Farms. This app allows you to register your farm and its opportunities and attract customers onto your farm. And of course, more customers means more profit. Now, there are some legal concerns that you may be worried about, especially liability with the having a pick your own operation and inviting people onto your farm. With this, we believe that the insurance that you already have on your farm will be more than enough to cover this. However, if you have further questions, I would love to put you into contact with experts through the NCRS and Ag Extension. We have also helped you on the regulatory side of things with dealing with the wetland situation, which Amber talked about earlier, and preventing pesticide drift and runoff, which could lead to lawsuits. Finally, I'd like to point out how our plan is beneficial to all interest groups involved. It helps to boost the local economy and provide workers with jobs. It also helps to benefit the local environment and increase tourism. But most importantly, it benefits you. We like to say, as Renee Leach pointed out, farmers are our heroes, and it's our turn to return the favor. Thank you.
In conclusion, these are the things that we accomplished today in our comprehensive management plan. We cannot increase the land for agriculture. We must produce more on less while reducing energy and water footprints. Our team has accomplished this with our plan, and we have protected natural resources. Thank you so much for your time and consideration, and we will now accept any questions that you have.
All right, I'll start with questions. Great job. Good things to consider. I do have a question, though. You mentioned putting in riparian buffers to reduce flooding. Could you explain how that works?
Certainly. So what riparians do is riparians zones they're made of trees, grasses, and shrubs. And what these do is it increases the surface area for water to adhere to, and even the roots of these plants can absorb large amounts of rainwater. And this will filter out and reduce the amount of water that goes into the stream.
How about now? Hey, much appreciation for your presentation. So you mentioned very diligently the concept of ecosystem services, and you did so in the portion of your presentation around enhancing forest production. So my question around that is, how did you consider ecosystem services that are provided across all of the agricultural ecosystem design features that you are proposing?
Okay, so one example of the ecosystem service would be leaving snags in the forest ecosystem. This could provide habitat for raptors, which then in turn protects your crops from rodents and other pest species. There are many other ecosystem services, such as reduced greenhouse emissions by using no-till methods, and also enhancing the wildlife to improve the ecosystem services.
And if I might add something, also with the use of cover crops, you're actually increasing the nutrient recycling by adding nitrogen back into the soil and storing the nitrogen for the following year's cash crop. And by sustainably managing the soil, you can actually double its capacity to store carbon, thus reducing the amount of carbon being released into the atmosphere, which is a great deal in the fight against climate change.
And if I may add, I spoke about biotechnology earlier and about the precision agriculture that we hope to implement onto your operation. By using that precision agriculture and only spot spraying where you actually need pesticides, herbicides, and fertilizer, you will be reducing the amount of runoff that you have into nearby waterways, and that will greatly improve the environmental conditions around your farm.
And speaking of waterways, the riparian buffer that Amber mentioned is going to help cool the stream, which is beneficial for aquatic wildlife and habitat. It adds detritus to the water, which is the base of the food chain, and it does many beneficial things like that.
You mentioned the possibility of putting in a poultry operation. Have you considered the impact that may have on your neighbors as far as the smell, the extra noise, the increased traffic from feed trucks and other trucks that go along with a poultry operation? Also, you wanted to possibly do a U-pick and do some agritourism. Have you considered the ramifications and the biosecurity measures needed to take to ensure that there's not a spread of disease into the poultry operation from the agritourism?
Yes, sir. Okay, so to start with the chicken houses, let me see if I can get back to my slide. Here we go. So the star denotes where we'd like to put the poultry houses, and we chose this location for three main reasons. The first is the topography. It wasn't best suited for cropland. The second was the soil productivity. Again, not too good for cropland. But also, it's surrounded by trees, which acts as a natural buffer. So we're not too close to any sort of neighborhoods, highways, any sort of other interfaces where odor could be a big issue. As far as the agritourism operation, the riparian buffer here that we would like to implement just around the pollinator habitat, those types of things are aesthetically pleasing. They attract people there, but with David's cover crops and integrated pest management, we reduce the amount of pesticides or chemicals we're putting out, so that's safer for the pickers who are coming.
If I might add, another reason that we chose the location of where we are putting our poultry is because it is quite a way away from where we are holding our agritourism, which is on the very far top right of the screen. And you can see there's quite a bit that would be a natural buffer preventing disease and pest spread.
Mr. Edwards' daughter is currently an agronomy student right here at NC State. And I wondered if you had any thoughts about how she might be involved in this process and what she might do sort of educationally going forward to better prepare her to take over the farm operation when the time comes.
To start out with how we would plan to include her in our plans, we would love to get into contact with her, discuss some of the things that she's learning right now, wants to try, and has questions about. We'd love to make sure that there's an understanding between us and the person that we are planning for, and that we can help to synergize our objectives.
Good afternoon. You all mentioned the use of easement programs along the creek there. Were there any other USDA programs thought about or recommended, and what would those programs be, and what practices would those programs be used for?
So one cost-share program that I would like to mention is the CCRP, which stands for the Continuous Conservation Reserve Program, and they help pay for buffer installation. Some figures say up to 90 to 100%, and not only do they pay for installation, but they also help with long-term management.
So I believe you mentioned a crop rotation of tobacco, sweet potatoes, corn, and soybeans. You also mentioned warm season cover crops. How do you integrate that into that rotation?
That is a very good question, sir. And I believe that, we would have to, we will definitely use the cool season cover crops while you're not growing any plants during the winter, and you can possibly intercrop your cover crops into your crop rotation, which would serve the purpose as a cover crop, and that would be one way I would think of implementing those.
And if I may add to what David said, with these warm season cover crops, we could grow those on just part of some of your fields, or we could integrate that into the crop rotation. So instead of going from corn straight to soybeans, we could have 1 year where we just grow a cover crop to try to replenish some of the nutrients that were lost from the crop that was grown before.
And also, we recognize that this is a lot of stuff that we've mentioned today, so it's not going to all happen at once, which means that if there are some fields we'd like to focus on and some that aren't focused on, we could plant some of the warm season cover crops there, perhaps some of the fields that are fallow, that aren't in production, so that we can start building that soil back while it's not being used.
So on this slide that you have right here, and following up on the previous question about the poultry houses, and I see that it's located in a forested area. Did you give any thought to unintended consequences of that inviting unwanted pests, predatorial pests that may have an impact on the neighbors in the community?
That is a wonderful question. So that kind of goes along with the waste management and integrated pest management that a couple of my colleagues have mentioned. I personally am not a specialist in waste management, so I can put you into contact with people who are. But for right now, I would say that the riparian buffer that we've put up and leaving snags and using some of the things that Amber talked about, just with, having raptors that'll, having raptors that'll prey upon some of these negative pests, that is a possibility that we could use through there. But for the meantime, I would like to put you into contact with a more resource professional.
Okay, so staying with the poultry houses, have you determined what the cost of a poultry house would be, how you're going to pay for it, and then how many chickens do you need in order to supply enough nitrogen, phosphorus for the farm?
So as far as the numbers-wise goes, that's going to depend on who you contract with. So that's kind of outside of our wheelhouse. We can help with that process, but it's going to depend on how big the house is we decide to put in and what our goal for producing is. As far as the what we need to add or testing, if we apply manure that we're using on our farm, we need to test both the manure and the soil before it goes down, because that's a map is great, an app is great, but being in the field is better.
Again, these are some details that we would love to work with you further on to determine exactly, so that we get exactly what you want with the benefits that we could include.
I heard good presentation, and earlier I heard some mention of practices put in place to reduce CO2 to help with climate change. With the introduction of poultry houses and thinking about the methane and climate pollutants there, have you guys sort of thought through how you balance the carbon methane accounting so that when you talk about sustainability, you can kind of capture all that?
So part of that is going to come in with the waste storage facilities, and that's going to help centralize that so we're not getting as many methane chemicals out into the environment. But with